Indeed a pleasure for us as we are live in the Oodle Noodles studio. Oodle Noodles, local, love, delicious. Since opening their first store back in 2005, Oodle Noodle has been all flavor and just the right amount of weird. 2 locations, 1244 17th Avenue Southwest, 105 Main Street North in Airdrie, pickup and delivery. Indeed, an honor for us as a friend of ours. Marco Carducci joins us live in studio from Calgary FC. How are you?
I'm doing well, Rob. Thanks for having me.
So am I wrong? Were you able to hear a little bit of Carla there?
I did hear it.
Talk to, don't talk down, right?
I loved it. I just sat down, put the headphones in, and I was like, that is brilliant. I was fired up.
Yeah, she got you going.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay, so 5th CPL season starts this Saturday for you guys, right?
That's right. Yeah.
In Hamilton?
Yep.
So, I mean, no Edmonton anymore. So does Hamilton now become the de facto number one rival?
I think they kind of always have been in a different way.
Yeah.
Obviously, the local rivalry is important. And I genuinely hope that we see an Edmonton team kind of revive soon.
Sure.
But Hamilton, since day one, have always been a team that, rightly so, and in fairness to them, they've been the cream of the crop. They've won 3 of 4. But every time we play them, it's a fiery contest, and that's been organic, which is really cool.
What's the weather like in Hamilton this weekend? You know?
I should have checked. I don't know.
When do you care about that?
Well, we leave tomorrow, so I should pack my bags shortly.
Okay.
But it's always windy there regardless.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. But thankfully, at least when we're on the field, like, I don't have to worry about that. All the kit we get is brought there. In terms of when we're there, it's not no shade here, but
yeah.
Not walking through Hamilton, going to see the sights. It's more of a business trip.
Well, no, it's a bit, for sure, it's a business trip.
Yeah.
But for a guy that might be spending half of the game just standing around, nature of the game, what's the best condition for you? What would be perfect conditions for you to play in?
You know what? Middle of summer at Spruce Meadows, Atco Field. That's the best time.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
No, the wind plays a part, and being completely serious, right? Especially in a stadium like they have there at the Tiger Cats, Tim Hortons Field there. Kind of creates a bit of a wind tunnel, which is a nightmare for goalkeepers, and it does affect the game. But like you mentioned, that's a part of the sport regardless, right? There's times where you need to keep yourself active and sharp, and not only physically, but mentally too.
Right.
Yeah.
But you could conceivably start the CPL season in snow and finish it in snow, conceivably.
Yeah.
Would you rather play it at 32 degrees in sun, or would you rather play, 10, 11 degrees, a little overcast?
That's a good one. It's a tough question. We have, by the way, started the season in snow and ended the season in snow.
Yeah. So it's not a reach.
It's almost a guarantee.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the best is like a comfortable, like 20 degrees,
okay.
Again, nice and calm. You get a little bit of everything though, right? Playing that's one of the beautiful things about this game is that, like, you can play in the pouring rain, and that's a completely unique experience. When it's cold, I mean, that sucks, but that's a different experience.
Yeah.
The heat plays a part too. So the game adapts with the weather a little bit too. But when I look back, I'm like, again, those like midsummer games when it's not too hot and just like perfectly clear skies.
Yeah.
It's a nice one. Yeah.
What's the worst conditions you've ever played in?
We played a game in 2019, so our first season in the CPL, which I think at kickoff it was like -10. The field was frozen. It was October, which it was funny because we played for another couple of weeks, and we had like the final, which was in early November, was much warmer. But that's the climate here, right?
Yeah.
It was so cold. It was just so, and that is difficult, right? Because especially for me, you're standing, I'm like, oh, I can't really feel my feet. That's going to suck when the action comes this way, or I can't feel my fingers. But that was one of them. There's been a couple where like rain and wind has been kind of blowing sideways. Not ideal as well when you're trying to like watch a ball and stay switched on with that.
Well, because you spent some time in the Whitecap system,
right?
You must have seen some of that crazy West Coast stuff. Did you ever play with fog on the field?
Nothing too severe.
Okay.
But we certainly got used to the rain, and that was unique for me as a kid because I was 14 when I left.
Yeah.
I was like, "Wow, you guys play out like it's December and you're outside." So like I was like, "This is weird."
Yeah.
But it's rain, right? And
yeah.
Don't get me wrong, it's a different type of cold. I know everyone talks about that, and it's true. But you get used to that a little bit. There weren't too many that the fog played a big part, but you got to get used to like catching a slippery ball and slippery surfaces and all that. It's a different beast.
So when last we saw you was this past fall at the end of the season. It did not go the way that obviously anybody wanted to go. What were you thinking? What were you because you had a new deal, you were due a new deal. The world is your oyster, as they say. Well, what was going through your mind in the fall?
There are a lot of things was maybe the easiest way to start it. Once the season ended, going into the off season, I did have an option on my pre-existing contract, which I was confident the club was going to take, and they had already made it clear that they were going to. So I had some clarity around that. But pretty early on, we were talking about extending my time here. I'm a Calgary boy. I've been a part of this club since the beginning. It means a lot to me, and it's a special place. But yeah, you're at that point where this, the season has freshly just ended. We were knocked out in the semifinals, which is tough. And you're starting to reevaluate, and you're also trying to step away a bit. So it's a unique situation as an athlete where you're now saying, well, what do I want? What is next for me? What is out there? And what do I have here? But really, pretty quickly, the club made it very clear that they wanted me to stick around. Again, I love this place, and this is an important place for me to be. And I feel that very special connection, not only to the club, but the greater community. And that helped make it realistically. I mean, again, within a few weeks we were talking, and then it was mostly smooth sailing.
But safe to say, had you wanted to go elsewhere, and I'm not talking about within the CPL, I'm talking about Europe or MLS, those options were there?
There were options for sure. The biggest thing for me was what was best and what is best for my career at the point I'm at. And there's always the opportunity. Like I said, I could have taken the option and played out next year or this season now, and then kind of reevaluate at the end of the year, but would have essentially been a free agent, which obviously opens up opportunities.
Right.
But my biggest thing was, I'm now 26 years old. I'll be 27 at the end of the season. In the world of goalkeepers, it's still pretty young. But I'm also now getting a bit more experience. I'm getting close to 100 games with Cavalry, which I'm excited to hopefully hit soon. But playing and getting those minutes and getting that experience, especially as a goalkeeper, especially in this position, is so crucial. And I knew, you can never predict the future, but the risk of going elsewhere or trying to go elsewhere can be very exciting, even when there are opportunities. But you don't know how that'll play out. And I felt like what I needed right now and what I continue to need going forward is to play and develop and be week in, week out, which has done, wonders for me over the last few years. I went through the struggle, as a lot of players do, especially goalkeepers, again, in my late teens and early 20s, barely playing. And that's a tough place to be because the world passes you by. You quickly get forgotten. Your confidence is, comes and goes. Really, really difficult. So to be able to continue to play and develop and be in a place, i.e. here in Calgary with Cavalry, I knew I could continue to establish myself as a pro, and then, we'll see where that takes me.
Marco, you say just something I want to dig down a little on, because you were a highly recruited young player. You were, twice, I think you were the under 17 player of the year.
That's right.
And so then you go, but then you sit. And we all know physiology and on all of that. That's your prime development, right? If you could do it over again, would you change it? Would you have maybe played at a lower level just to play?
100%. So as the brief context, as you mentioned, I was playing at the youth level. This kind of backs right off of us going to the under 17 World Cup. And a lot of hype around that for all of us players. Then I get brought up into the first team system at the Whitecaps. So I get my first pro contract, which was amazing. Then just struggled to find playing time, which is normal.
I was
certainly nowhere close to being ready to playing at the MLS level.
Right.
No chance. So I'm not saying I was. But not having that regular game time was tough. And I take some responsibility there. Absolutely. I would say I think it was managed. It wasn't managed as well as it could have been for me. But yeah, from 17, 18, 19, when you're so young and you need to be playing. You need to be playing at the lower level, at your same age group, whatever it is, you need to be playing. And that was tough for me. And it was tough for a lot of other players too.
Right.
And it still is an issue,
Sure.
by the way.
Because you could have gone to the MLS and backed up, right? This year, found a home someplace.
I think the opportunity was there. But
Sure. But to back up.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And that's the thing. Again, by no means was there just a contract waiting.
No. But it's a reasonable expectation that you and your agent could have had.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was something, again, that I weighed the kind of the scales with. I was like, well, do I go somewhere? And whether that's MLS or overseas,
Sure.
At where I'm at right now, at my age, kind of in this progression I've been, and accept sitting on the bench.
Right.
I said, hell no. Why would I do that right now? Again, as a goalkeeper, I hope to have 10 plus years ahead of me to play.
Yeah.
And those are my best years.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, I was like, having kind of experienced that. And it is a tough place to be, like I said, to not be playing at some point that might be okay. You might say, you know what, I will be the steady, good dude in the locker room who's number 2, number 3, whatever. And we all need that. You need that in a locker room. You need that in the culture. But I'm not ready for it. I want to be the guy playing on the field 90 minutes every single game and continuing to grow and develop. And again, that's where I'm at. So we'll see. Maybe that my career takes me to that stage at one point. But for the time being, games are still exactly what I need, and I want to continue to develop.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. And God bless the CPL because it's done that, right? Like our outstanding producer Gavin just reminded me. You're the first ever MVP player of the year out of the CPL. That was kind of you got shot out of a cannon. You just got to play, right?
Yeah, I went from 2017 end of 2016 leaving the Vancouver Whitecaps, not really knowing, bouncing around. I found a club down in Texas. Difficult experience for me, but a great learning experience. Coming back up, playing in the PDL, kind of a lead into the CPL.
Yep.
To 2019 being those things, getting a call up to the men's national team,
which again, first player out of the league too. Somebody had to do it.
Yeah,
right.
And that's exactly what this league was made for.
Yeah,
I was very fortunate. I know plenty of guys who at late 18, 19, even in early 20s, who have no opportunity anywhere and have to go overseas, have to go try to break it in, which you get the 1 or 2 guys who can do it. Alphonso Davies comes to mind, right? Goes overseas, breaks into the MLS and gets a move to Bayern Munich. Now is playing Champions League every week. He's an anomaly in this case, right? He's a special player.
Yeah.
The CPL filled that gap. And there's still a lot of work to be done, but I look across the league and see lots of guys who I grew up playing with, who otherwise may not have had these opportunities. And again, myself included, where it's given me that platform to have that time to play and develop. Because again, I'll say it a million times, but playing is everything.
Sure it is.
Whether you're me at 26, or I even look at guys on our team in the last couple of years. We have Victor Lattori and Erben Peppel, who both teenagers or maybe just 20. I think Vic was, who got moves to Europe because they're playing week in, week out at this level and showing their talent and developing and playing at this at a high professional level to then push their career on.
Yeah.
That pathway exists everywhere else. We're catching up and we're starting to see the fruits of that within a couple of years.
Yeah. I just wish I could have you talk to parents at evaluation time, because, and you and I had this conversation off the air, that I wish parents understood that while it's great for little Johnny or little Mary to play on the top team and sit and watch, they could be playing on the B team and playing all the time. And it's far more beneficial to play all the time.
100%. Again, I think whether that's at the youngest, earliest stages to being at elite levels and pushing to get your opportunity to play. And again, you see it so many places where loans is a big thing in the world of soccer, right? Where young players get loaned out, they go play at lower levels. That same process applies to the community teams here.
Sure, they do.
Play.
Absolutely.
Play. And really, and again, we have talked about this and it goes further. Then you enjoy it. And then you really have the opportunity.
Yes.
Then you really have the opportunity to, not everyone's going to become a professional. Not everyone's going to go to the next level. People might fall out of love, whatever it is, but you're playing and you're enjoying it. And then you have that opportunity to, wherever it takes you, whether you do push on or you stay at a more recreational level.
Yep.
The game is about, it's just a game. It's about having fun.
That's right. And they'll find you.
Exactly.
And they will always find you.
Absolutely.
They will always find you. You are celebrating. Well, celebrating might be the wrong word, but 14 months ago, your life changed, did it not?
Yeah, celebrating. Yeah, it might not.
No,
be.
it's not,
No,
not, not
you know what?
celebrate.
You know
Well, I
what?
guess in a way.
I think celebrating is an okay word for
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that it's now been over a year. In February of last year, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. It happened very quickly. It was treated very quickly. So that whole experience, which I've spoken about a lot, but I'm always open to speaking about more, came and went. And it's a bit surreal to reflect back on the year plus that it's been. But I'm grateful for it, really. Grateful for the experience. Obviously, I would have loved to have had that learning experience brought to me in a different way.
Sure.
But I think I've come out of it with a different perspective on so many things, and that's what I'm grateful for.
Tell me a little bit about that perspective, because is it safe to say that your initial reaction was probably similar to many, many guys who would just say, "Oh, I don't have the time for this," right?
Absolutely. I when I look back, and I'll tell the story quickly because
You got time. Yeah, we're not going anywhere.
Good. I was lucky. I like to think one way or another, our family doctor, Dr. Retzer, shout out, taught me early, like check down there, be aware.
Mhm.
So I kind of always knew as a
Mhm.
young man, as a young, even into my teen years and everything like that, as I was growing up, be aware. You have to
Yep.
self check. So it's something I did, and as soon as I started to notice the symptoms, first reaction was exactly that. Oh, weird, strange, nothing though.
Yeah.
And reflecting back on, so we're talking the off season between the 2021-2022 season. So before last season started, I was also at a point where there was some talk. Was a team interested? Was something happening? Was I going to go for the, so a lot is going on in the
Yeah.
background.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, if this is something, or if I'm noticing this, but there's an opportunity to go train or play, or preseason's coming up, I got to be ready. I 100% would have said, yeah, we'll deal with it later. One reason or another, things kind of fell through, and gratefully, had the opportunity, as we do, we very quick access to our team doctor,
Mhm.
Dr. Robinson, who I got to see super quickly, and we handled that. But to circle back to your question, we're young men in this locker room. We're young athletes. You exist in a hyper competitive world.
Mhm.
Masculinity is a very touchy subject where you don't want to show even a hint
Yep.
of vulnerability, or that you're weak, because that in elite level sport can hurt you.
Right.
That stigma exists, right? It
Right.
absolutely exists. That God forbid you go into training one day and say, I'm not feeling too great here. You just be like, well, you either get on with it or
Yep.
don't. And I know that when this had happened, it would have been easy for myself and for a lot of other guys to say, I'm just not going to worry about it. It's nothing, because I don't want to miss training. I don't want to miss.
Yep.
And again, you put so much faith and trust in your body. It's everything for your career. The last thing you're going to do is start questioning it.
Mhm.
And that obviously can have some serious consequences, but that's been the biggest shift, perspective wise, is to be like, that vulnerability, that awareness to say, you know
Right.
what, I might not be all right. And this is, again, it extends beyond physical. It includes mental as well, emotional, everything in between. That's been something that's why the message is important for me.
And I'm going to pause the story here and we'll continue on. But this part's important, because when I heard your testimony, and for the first time, when I heard you speak in front of a group, it was a Thursday breakfast. Later that night, Miami was playing Thursday night football, and Tua went out and suffered the second concussion in 4 days. And what you had said just 10 hours earlier now just went right up my spine. Because all that guy was doing was what he thought he was supposed to be doing. And we teach, and we have in the past taught, especially young boys, that rub some dirt on it, keep playing through. If you go, we'll get another quarterback. You're disposable. If you go, we can play another keeper.
Yeah.
Except that nobody really ever actually says that. We just have an environment that creates that illusion in our mind, right? That something we need to address in youth sports, is somehow, because I know, well, as soon as you give somebody an excuse and they won't work hard, that's not this. You have to listen to your body, don't you?
For sure. I remember us talking about that too. I remember
Yep.
that moment because it was eerie in terms of the timing. You're 100% right, Rob. It's not. Maybe sometimes it is, but it's not. It's not out there. But it's a it's an unwritten rule, right? Where you're
Right.
like, "Ah, I'll shake that one off,
Yeah.
or no, I'm fine. And again, I think it shows up mostly. Now we're lucky as athletes. You have access to a therapist and
Yeah.
a physio and a AT and a doctor. So we have those resources there. But again, even just saying this feels a bit off, or I've had a rough couple weeks at home, or whatever it is, and you say, I might need
Mm-hmm.
a bit of time or a bit of space or a bit of support. The stigma exists 100%. Because like you said, that might not be, the coach might not say, okay, well, you're sitting for that because I don't want you on the field if I can't trust you.
Yeah.
But it's there. It's there in our minds, and it 100% needs to start earlier. Because again, I know
Yep.
I was very fortunate with the way things played out for me, with the support network I had around me
Yep.
to give me that again that comfort and that care when I needed it most. It would have been really, really easy, and definitely the default, to, even for me, noticing something that ended up being testicular cancer
Right.
and say, well, I don't want to risk my preseason because this is an important part for me to start training and get up
Yep.
to speed.
Yep.
I missed all of preseason.
Yep.
Right. So
Yep.
it certainly did. I missed the first 3 games of the year. That can really quickly turn into us just brushing it under the rug and saying, well, I'll deal with this later. I'll deal with this later. It has to start earlier because we see it at the youngest stages now, and that's pervasive. It stays, and then we get to like my level now. It exists 100%.
Now, I want to make sure everybody understands this isn't us two sitting here pointing our fingers at sport, because your team from top to bottom had your back on this. Like it's the men. We're now talking about the mental conversation, not necessarily the reality of the situation, right? Because when you did have to let everybody know, they were there for you.
It was one of the most emotional experiences that whole thing had, was talking to my teammates for the first time. We kept it relatively in-house at the start,
Mm-hmm.
but instantly, that stayed with Tommy, our head coach, and our medical team. My phone was going. I was sitting in the emergency room getting calls and messages, and everyone was checking in, and even that alone was like, the human element comes out really quickly, where it's not, no one cares anymore about, oh, you're missing training tomorrow, what's going on. It's now, we knew. And once I told my teammates, and once it kind of went out to the community wider within the club, at least it wasn't public yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just everybody, I think, had that switch moment, right? Where we were like, oh, this goes way beyond anything about, oh, Marco's not at training, what's going on. It was now, it's a group of brothers in there for us, right? And the connections we have and the relationships we have, that's bigger than anything. And to this day, it does make me a little bit emotional to think about what that felt like, to know everyone had my back. And I know it helped me. Absolutely.
So I just, again, I can't say this enough. We're talking about stigma versus the reality of the situation. And the stigma is what we need to figure out, because the reality is there. They had your back, and still do. Hell, the league had your back, right? That was one of the amazing parts of this journey too, right?
Once I decided to go public with it, and again, the amount of support I had to even do that, and know that was the best thing for me to do. The outpouring of love and support, and these like grassroots, like where there were people talking about how to support organizations that I knew, it was incredible. And that kind of showed that wider community of what sport can do, and in this case, obviously in the soccer world here, it was just beyond what I imagined. I thought people would go, "Oh, geez, sorry," and give me a pat on the back and say, "Well, we're glad you're healthy." But it went way, way, way beyond that. I mean, I had posters given to me after games from the team that was cheering against me the whole game, and then afterwards we're talking again, people to people, and it was a pretty special thing to see.
Yeah, just throwing one of those posters up now. Let's unpause where we stopped. It'd be irresponsible of me to continue this conversation without asking you probably about the most important person in this whole drama outside of yourself. And you pick them good. Tell me about your better half in this situation.
Yeah. Haley, she She was the only person who knew. So she's my partner. And,
Yeah.
and during this process, again, rewind a year, I'm not bringing this up at family lunch, right? Like, how are things? Well, you got a few minutes for me to tell you about my most recent discovery. She was the only one who knew. And we spoke about it, and she said, okay, well, she just supported me in the way she knew how. I remember she texted me after training the day that I got the news and ended up, detouring to the hospital, saying, where are you? You should be home by now. Usually, I'm a good texter. I'm like, yeah, I'll be a bit late or whatever. And she's going, are you alive? Alive and well. And I'm like, well, I'm alive. But she knew
right away.
right?
Yeah.
To this day, it's hard for me to actually put into words what her support meant. It's really tough. No one talks about the person on the other side of it. Everyone's asking me, how are you? And
Yeah.
especially immediately after it happened, no one really thinks about the emotional toll it took on her, who was there with me the whole way through. And you know her, you've met her,
Yep.
and you've seen the ways in which she's just been incredible.
Oh, rock.
And without her, I if this had happened and she wasn't in my life, I would really, this isn't hyperbole, I don't know how I would have been able to come back from that, because she 100% was a rock. And I'm still trying to find my way to support her, because it's still a journey for her. This is still a reality for us. I'm still getting my follow-ups and checkups, and even a year out, you're still like, well, that happened, for the both of us, by the way, not just for me. So there aren't enough words for me to express my gratitude to her. That is ongoing, right? That she continues to give me that, because there's still our ups and downs, right?
Yeah.
Every single time I get in the car to go for some routine blood work now, she knows that my cortisol is just through the roof, because that feeling, it's hard to shake that so quickly, right? And yeah, no, she did something for me that I'm not sure I could ever repay her for.
It's interesting because we had Kelsey Snow on a couple of weeks ago, and we talked to her, and of course she's doing the same thing with Chris, right? As he goes through, she's the rock for Chris in that case. But I was talking to her about the decision to go public. What about your decision to go public, to share? This is not a comfortable conversation for men to have, right? Dislocate my elbow? Sure. Let me show you my scar. Was this difficult for you to wrap your head around about coming out and being public with this?
Yes, in the sense that it always is, like you said. But as soon as I was able to kind of wrap my head around the power and the impact I could have by sharing the story, it 100% was a no-brainer. Um, it's certainly more common than we think. Even after I went public, I was many men who were relatively close to me within my community network came out and said, "Oh, this happened to me too,"
Yep.
or my brother or my dad, or very, 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 very closer than I would have thought. But it was difficult because, like you said, it's not. I remember sitting there thinking, well, we could just tell the guys that I had to get a groin surgery, because there's similar incision points on the guys. We see it in the locker room. And I said, what good will that do if they think, oh, you had a hernia or something,
right?
And you need to, oh, look, we have matching scars now. But talking about testicular cancer, and obviously cancer is a scary word, but for it to be a testicular, it's also a very private area, and I've had to get comfortable with that, and it is. I think you talk about it's a part of our health, it's a part of our bodies, and just knowing that what happened to me, but it could have been anybody. It could be anybody, and the age range and who it affects really is it includes my colleagues. It's all my teammates. It's all the guys I play against. It's young men. It affects young men,
right?
And I look around the league and I look around my locker room. It could have been anybody else. It could still be. And me just holding it in and keeping it would do no value to those guys. So getting around the discomfort of talking about my private parts and what I've gone through, that was far outweighed by the potential impact I knew it could have just by advocating for and spreading that awareness.
So even prior to a year ago, I've been fortunate to work with you with kids sport. I've heard you speak before. You've always been this, this really gregarious, articulate athlete that is standing up for the good things, standing up for city, and all of those. So I don't want to suggest that you started from zero, but what has getting up and telling your testimony and telling your story, how has that impacted you? How has that changed you?
In a lot of ways, yeah. That's the first place I would start is again a perspective shift on kind of what really matters for
Mm-hmm.
me. And when I look at it in the frame of sport and soccer in my career, I remember my first game back, which was our home opener last season. And I went out there and I was still a bit nervous. We hadn't won it. We only picked up a draw in our first 3 games. So there was a bit of pressure.
Yep.
You always want to go out there and win. There's always a bit of nerves. I was walking out onto the field saying, I get to play this game that I was playing since I was walking. I get paid for it, and I'm doing it in front of family and friends in my community. And it's a game.
Yep.
It's 90 minutes to play soccer, so a sport I love.
Yep.
That alone kind of gave me a different freedom that I think has elevated my game. And that same kind of idea of just being like, just enjoying it, right? Because if you had asked me 14 months ago before this all went down, I would have told you I was invincible. I'm like, yeah, Rob, as long as I don't get hit by the bus crossing the street later, I'm fine. I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm fit, I'm strong, I'm doing all these things.
Yeah.
The shift of perspective in terms of being like, what impact can we have around the people closest to us and beyond that into the community? How can we make the most out of everything? And some of these are buzzwords and cliche, but it's so true, right? Again, the way I approached getting back out on the field, and I do every single day, I got to go play a game I love. And so few of us get to this level
Yeah.
of play.
Yeah.
That alone was like, never take that for granted again. And that's kind of just bled into other parts of my life where I'm like, it's every single moment, everything we can do. I'm grateful to be in my community and be able to have some small impact in a few things. So I'm like, make the most of that because, when I'm sitting there faced with this diagnosis, I had no idea what the next day was going to look like. Never mind my next season or the rest of my life.
Right.
And again, that's what I'm most grateful for.
Marco, you've used the word community a number of times, and I'm not a genius, but when somebody offers it up on their own, it must be important to them.
You are a genius.
No, I'm not a genius. Why is community so important to you? Where did that come from, or where did that get instilled in you?
I think it started with, and is still kind of the home base is my family. Family is very important to me. Families are can be complicated and different and unique for everybody. So I know, everyone's experience can be very different, but I grew up in a very tight knit family. And that extended to my cousins and my aunts and uncles and my nonas who raised me and all
Sure.
that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was my first community. And then sport really, and it was primarily soccer for me.
Now, Dad was a goalie too.
Dad was a goalkeeper
Okay.
too. Yeah. And he nudged me, let's say, into the position.
Okay.
Apparently I loved it.
Okay.
as the
No,
story
well,
goes.
sure.
But, I started playing sport.
Yeah.
I started playing soccer, and we're talking Timbits, kicking the ball around when
Yeah.
you're 4 years old. And that's community too. And it started there. And that was the first, those experiences of having that network of people around you. And then how that extends further. I was born into that, and I was playing in that and experiencing that from, again, 3 or 4 years old when I first started playing. So community has always been there for me. I maybe couldn't have actually like verbalized that or really explained that, but I was getting those lessons and those experiences. And as I grew, as I was getting older, and my when we talk about soccer, as I was progressing through my career, I saw exactly how much community meant, how important it was, as I kind of progressed through my levels, and eventually, went out of town to continue to play, and then had my community here and had the greater community. It's never a one person job, and I learned that very quickly. And again, whether that was at home with my friends and my family, or with what I was trying to do professionally in my career, I knew right away that value and that impact had done so much for me. And the power of community could extend into, you name it.
Right. Right. Holy cow. I don't recognize that kid. I'm just, yeah, okay. To that end, that is not a Cavalry FC hoodie.
Yeah.
If I am correct in that, that is your community team growing up?
That's right. Yeah. So I played with a couple clubs growing up, but eventually landed with Calgary Villains.
Which I love. I love that name, by the way. I just love that name.
I know you do. Yeah. So I ended up playing for the Villains from when I was about 10 years old, maybe even 9, to when I went and took off for Vancouver to go continue my career out there with the Whitecaps and with the academy. So for 5 very, very important years of my youth kind of development, and that's when soccer became
a passion,
more serious,
sure,
and a passion.
Yeah,
and I knew that there were, and I wanted to pursue it, and I knew that there was an opportunity, and I was training regularly, and I was playing with teams. We were very competitive. If you talk about community, this club was a major source of community for me when I was 10 to 14 years old. And now I've been fortunate enough to have kind of done the full circle and been able to support the club on the other end of things.
Well, tell me about that. So you're now in the position where you're giving back?
Yeah. And I'm very grateful. I mean, I look around the club and a lot of the same faces are there from when I was a kid, and they approached me, and it was great timing because I was actually thinking about approaching them, and there was an opportunity to support communities and youth soccer clubs here. It's a lot of grassroots stuff, and it's a lot of hard work from very few people who oftentimes are not getting paid anything at all to be committing all their time and energy into doing things. And the people at Villains gave me the opportunity to come back and support with community relations and some sponsorship stuff. The club's growing, so they needed a little bit of support in terms of more the business side, which was really cool for me to explore another passion of mine, just beyond saying, "Hey, Marco, do you want to come coach? You're cool. You're the number one for Cavalry FC." They kind of knew that they could help me in that path as well, which again I'm really grateful for because it's been an amazing experience so far.
So that really is community building, right?
Exactly.
Which is so tell us a little bit about the work you're undertaking.
So there's been a lot of exciting progress within the club, and even when I came back, youth sports in Calgary and soccer in particular has continued to go crazy on its in its trajectory forward, and in terms of the growth and everything. So within Villains, just continuing to like bridge those gaps with the communities, the community around us, and the different partnerships and sponsorships we can look at to support youth soccer has kind of been my key role. But as the club is also growing, we're now entering an exciting stage where we want to build a indoor domed field house type facility. The demand is crazy right now to have more of those facilities in the city and Canada in general. And that's been another really fun part of kind of my role there, is just tying all those things together within the community, getting the external stakeholders and everyone involved to work together to push this thing forward and ultimately provide what will be an amazing facility and an amazing opportunity for more young players. And that extends outside of soccer as well, to have the facilities we need, because for the last 6-7 months I've been training indoors too, right? And we need more of those spaces. So that's been a really fun journey so far.
So my experience with building buildings is, hey, we need buildings. Yes, we need buildings. Absolutely. We all need we all agree. Buildings. All right, let's go build one. What? Huh? Who, me? No, I'm not me. Yeah. How is the process going? What are you learning about building a building?
You painted it pretty clearly. It's tough.
It is hard, isn't it?
Everyone loves the idea.
Sure.
And if it were as easy as snapping your fingers and
absolutely
10 field houses, I mean, I know we're as a city trying to build a field house as well. And that exactly. If it's difficult at that level, it's difficult at every level. So yeah, I think it is so easy to make the pitch to say we need this. And everyone goes, of course we need it. Yeah, 100%. We absolutely need it. You use this word a lot, which I really love. Is you need a hero. You need someone. You need something. You need a group of people to actually do that work, to put your head down and get it over the line. And we have had a ton of support, and I won't kill you with the details, but we've had a ton of internal support. We've had a ton of external support to make this happen and to continue to push it forward. But it's not easy. It's not an easy task. And I've learned that it takes a ton of collaboration. It takes a lot of time and energy from people who, again, are doing this for whatever reason, right? Some passion.
Well, they're doing it for the right reasons.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But as you're probably learning, my reasons might be slightly different than your reasons.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
How exhausting is it being a hero?
Yeah. Pretty tiring sometimes. and listen, I owe a lot of gratitude to the handful of people, and I'll name their
Please.
names. Calvin Campbell at Calgary Villains, who's basically does everything for the club, but is officially the GM. Jeff, who is supporting on the side with the board, and it goes beyond. There's a lot of us who have been pushing this thing forward from internally, but I've been able to have conversations with our friends at Parks Foundation Calgary, at Sport Calgary, a variety of stakeholders within the community that can help push this thing forward and continue to support us as we go. So it's not just one hero by any means, but it's about gathering all those forces and getting everybody on the same page and finding what that target is and going towards it. And that there will always be speed bumps. There will always be obstacles along the way. But I've learned that it certainly takes a village to move that forward.
Well, or I would say that I always thought, talk is cheap is a great movie line. Like it's, gangsters, cowboys say that. No, when you're building, talk is cheap, right? Like, it's about getting stuff done and rolling up your sleeves. I credit you, sir. I credit you. And, this is lots of athletes in your position when they retire do this, but while you're in the prime to undertake this, I think is really amazing. So, how can people learn more? How people can get more information?
So we're still pretty early on in the stages of kind of when we need the public and getting more people involved. That being said, if you go on our website at Calgary Villains FC, there's a lot of resources there that kind of show where we're at and our bigger vision. People can get in touch with me, even just social media is probably the easiest way. I'm active enough on Instagram and whatnot.
I think so.
That we can continue to spread the word, because right now we're trying to get a few more pieces aligned, and then I think we're getting to the point where we want to push this out and really build that buzz. But those are probably the best ways.
So outside of beating cancer and building a new soccer facility indoors, what else is going on? Year 5 of the Cavalry kicks off this weekend. He won't be listening. He'll be preparing, so don't worry about this. What's Tommy like year 5 versus year 1? Because you had him in the PDL too, right? So you've had him longer than that, but is he evolving?
That's a wonderful question. And what's funny is we talk again about community. I'll put it this way. Tommy's known me since I was that 9-10-year-old kid.
That's true.
Playing, and we used to play against each other a lot when he was coaching. And so we go way back. So there's definitely been an evolution, as there's been with me. I think everybody has had to have learned over the last few years. And I think as a staff, starting from Tommy, we've all evolved and developed as the competition certainly has gotten better and better within the league. But things change, right? And you have to continue to adapt and push forward. And I think you'd be the first to say, like, we've had a lot of success, but we haven't gotten to where we need to. And I know they've addressed that as a coaching staff, starting with Tommy, and that also applies to us players. I mean, I'm one of the few originals remaining, but to see the growth from the entire club, and where we started to where we are now, and like, again, in 5 short years, including 2.5 years that were really
COVID, exactly.
We don't want to harp on that too much, but that was a big thing. That
was a reality.
To be where we are now, is incredible. But I know Tommy is constantly trying to learn and one up, his opponents and figure that out and get that message to us. And I think that's what's made us a strong team.
No, I mean, this is going back a couple of years, but Nick's moved on. Like there's been a lot of staples of this team that were there at the beginning have moved on. You mentioned you're kind of like the elder statesman in a way. How do you view this year's club? What's it going to look like? How's it going to play?
Well, we've been able to keep a pretty decent core from last season,
Okay.
which is great for that
Mhm.
continuity. But we have added some very, very exciting pieces, I think. I last year we went on a hot streak, but I think we knew it was tough for us to find a lot of goals
Yeah.
consistently
Yeah.
at points. Now I look at some of the players that we've brought in to top up the quality we already have. And we're like 2 or 3 guys deep in every position, especially on that top half of the field, which is very exciting.
Mhm.
That's not my job, right? I'm always thinking about just keeping it out of our net,
Yep,
right? But
yep.
I'm like, damn, the fans are gonna love these guys because there's just hunger and excitement and a lot of really good
Yeah, but
flair.
if you've got a 2-goal lead to deal with or to work with, you can carry that home, right? Like that's
Yeah.
that's got to be a nice feeling if it's not going to be like chopping wood to get a goal.
Well, exactly. And I think we've always been solid. I think as I reflect on last year, certainly a lot of good moments, but we actually also had a few games where we were leakier than I would have liked,
Mhm.
that any one of us would have liked. But we're like, typically one of the big things of our culture as a team and as an organization is that we are a tough team to play. And that especially applies in terms of how we defend.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of pride in that. So I know that that's going to be a given. That's going to be something that everyone will always know you'll get from a cavalry team. But I'm excited to see again those new faces. We've had a long preseason, a successful preseason, and I think now those gears are starting to click together, and it'll be exciting.
So what are the for you now year 5 with this club? What are the goals that you set for yourself? How would you define success, for you this year?
I always I always say this. So I'm giving you the little caveat. But I truly believe it. I just want to be the best that I can be for this team.
Okay.
And I know
Nothing wrong
I
with
know,
that.
yeah. And look, I added to my Golden Glove tally last year with my second.
Yeah.
I absolutely want to win another one of those.
Yep.
I want this team to be successful. I want to be successful individually. But for me, if I had to put something on, it's just about being consistent, reliable, and solid for this team.
Mhm.
And I know if I can do that, we'll do great things collectively. Ultimately, we still haven't filled our trophy cabinet with that final piece of silverware we're chasing, which is to be CPL champions, and that is 100% the end goal. But it's a long year, and I think again that same kind of feeling applies for me, where it's like I want to be the best, and I
Yeah.
want to prove that week in week out. Starts on Saturday,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The rest of the league, we mentioned no Edmonton this year. Hopefully that's short term, but makes the league a little bit better. I believe there's a little bit of expansion. What do you see in year 5? How has the league grown in the first 4?
Well, with Edmonton dropping out, Vancouver's now come in.
Yeah.
So that's a completely new franchise, a new team with a lot of players kind of coming from throughout the league, but also from elsewhere. So definitely a little bit of a toss up there. So you don't really know what to expect,
Mhm.
which I think is exciting for fans of the league. Absolutely. But again, and I've said this earlier, everybody's getting better. The quality that's getting brought into this league, and then you look at the guys who have now been in the league, myself included, for a few seasons.
Mhm.
That experience of playing in this league with the complexities and the travel and all the things,
Yes.
that makes everybody better when you have that experience. So, I look across the league this year, and I think I would say it's every single year has stepped forward. The parity is there. Anybody on any day can go in and win anywhere. So I think it's going to be exciting. I think the first couple of years there were, ourselves included, we're
Mhm.
kind of ahead of the pack. Everyone's catching up. Everyone's trying to get there. And I think last year showed that too. A lot of competition in a very, very tight league table over the whole course of the season.
Right.
So things are improving, I think, everywhere on and off the pitch, which is fantastic. Um, and that'll, I think, end up in being just really great games all season long.
So as a Canadian football player, we should at least once use the term correctly.
Nice one.
No, thank you. Um, and I want to be careful how I craft this because you are a player. You are not the league. You are not the teams or any of that. How do you feel about the game overall in our country right now and where it sits?
I think we're at a very, very interesting point. We don't need to get into the nitty gritty of kind of what's.
I want to, but it's not with you. The right person needs
Right.
to sit here and answer the questions. You're not it. Sorry.
Thank you. Don't say sorry. Thank you. No, there's obviously a lot going on.
Yeah.
But the growth, first and foremost, has been tremendous this year. Again, you look back, the women have been paving the way since the early 10s with Olympic medals culminating in a gold in Tokyo. They're preparing for a World Cup. Our men, as we all know, first World Cup in 36 years.
It was cool. It was cool.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I remember watching the first game at home and my heart was beating like crazy. I was so nervous. I had so much energy watching us play Belgium in the first game, the first 2 minutes of the game. It was a feeling I couldn't explain. And I feel like that was something that happened to all Canadian footy fans. And with all of that, with the league kind of continuing to, definitely continue to grow and improve and all these players coming through, by all means, a lot of work to be done. We're going in the right direction. It's now a matter of making sure that we're doing it in the right way,
right?
And that we're handling that progress because it's happening very quickly, and I know that poses a lot of challenges too. But in short, it's an exciting time, and an old teammate of mine now working for Calgary FC, Mason Trafford, has said this a lot, and I think it's such an important point to think about is. You have a guy like Dominic Zator who used to play with us, Victor Latourie. Those two guys were both at Canada men's national team's most recent camp. Playing at Spruce Meadows at Echo Field only a couple seasons ago, each of them. That pathway and that development and what is truly tangibly happening right now is unlike anything that's ever happened before in this country.
There's players that are going to play this year that will likely be part of the 2016.
Yes.
Right.
100%. 100%.
Right.
And it's it feels like it's almost at that grassroots level. It really is in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But that's incredibly exciting because I hope I'm one of those players, and I hope there are many others that are now plying their trade and getting these opportunities and finding these pathways that can go on and now do things.
But you're comfortable playing where you are that you could get that opportunity. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like you didn't have to feel like you didn't have to leave here to go somewhere else so that John Herdman would find you.
And I think continuing to, our men's national team shows it. We have guys who are playing at the highest levels now, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And not one or two, like 10, 15.
Yeah.
Playing in Europe, playing at the highest, playing in the MLS week in, week out. That's the standard now.
Yes.
Which is incredible. And again, I think the women have been setting that with some world class. I don't need to name the names because we know who they all are, but playing for these massive European clubs and whatnot, the standard is growing every single day. And I think that is what bodes so well.
I like that word. I like that word. Standard rather than anomaly or one-off or anything. The new stand. Yeah, there's some issues. And honestly, I can ask you as an athlete, you're part of the Kids Sport Ambassador. You deal with a lot of athletes. We have NSO issues all across the board right now. So your sport isn't alone. But to me, that's the big piece of this is that now there's a new standard. There's no, when you're talking about playing Belgium, I don't know how to articulate it. It was just nice to play a team or a country that you couldn't go to at a discount on Sunwing Air. You know what I mean?
That's a great one. Yeah,
right. Like, it was an actual football country, right?
Yeah.
That's an interesting conversation. And I hope, that things get cleaned up a little bit. I still hope for you guys. I know I talked to Tommy. Tommy would love to bring at some point an English side over, something like that, a pro side over to train and things like that. Those are the types of things I want to see in my city. I want to see an indoor football field too. But I'd also like to see a new outdoor one, or not a newer one, but a bigger. Maybe you can build. Can you build it out at ACO? Can we build more stands?
I think you absolutely could. I think there's also. I don't want to speak for the ownership there, but I know that there's space within the grounds elsewhere that also could
Just saying.
potentially accommodate it. Which,
Just saying.
yeah, again, you look at where we were at after 5 years. Where are we at after 20? After 25,
Right.
30? The sport's not going anywhere.
No, it's not.
Um,
No, but it's not going anywhere. It's just finally going.
Exactly.
Right. And
Which is
I've said
amazing.
this to you before. I've said it on here. I mean, I was in Commonwealth Stadium in whatever, 78, 79. I saw Pele play for the New York Cosmos.
Yeah, yeah.
There was 47,000 people in that building. I thought it was taken off then, and it didn't.
Yeah.
You've seen the stutter steps. You've seen, now it feels like there's traction. Yes, there's a big issue to deal with, and we'll get through it because we got to be adults about it. But man, you know, I look at soccer and I look at basketball and I look at, you know, sure, great when we win hockey best on best. I love that. But man, there was something about being part of the World Cup, which is the biggest party in the world, right?
Yeah.
There's just something about it. And to have your women be at the top of the table and, you know, and be able to go and bloody the nose of the Americans there's something about that.
Yeah.
That's kids. And this goes back to kid sport now. Kids need to see this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like kids need to understand that Alfonso Davies was a kid sport kid, right? And Sam, kid sport kid, right? Like that's the best part about this.
Yeah, these are the kids now who are playing, and you know, it's again circling it back to like me looking at it from a different view.
Yeah,
I'm seeing these kids playing at, you know, whatever 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, and I'm saying, which one of these will be the next national team player? Because that's
the way it works. That's the way it works,
and that's going to happen. And
right.
The more opportunity we have, the more facilities we have, the better that this whole system is governed and ran and taken care of. Those opportunities will they'll take off exponentially.
Yeah.
Which like I said is, you know, we won't have one Alfonso Davies and one Sam Adekubi. We might have 10.
Right.
And now
then we get to cut one. Right. Like I hate to I'm being funny, but I'm not being funny. Right. Like when you get to having to make those really difficult decisions, you're in a good place.
Yeah, exactly. And like I had mentioned, I think if you look at where, using the men's national team as an example, you look at 5, 6, maybe 7 years ago, it was almost hard to like find enough players that were competing at that level to give us a chance to even be close to qualifying for World Cup. And that's not a knock on anybody.
No, and I think those guys deserve extra credit because they fought like hell.
They did everything.
Like Craig Forrest, you know, peer in your position group. I mean, he was it for a long time, right? Like they fought like hell.
Yeah.
But you just need to be better.
Well, and we talk about pathways.
Yes.
What pathway was there? Never mind 30 years ago or longer, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Even for me, I had to go to Vancouver to be in a professional environment.
That's right.
That wasn't that long ago.
Nope.
And I was very lucky that I just caught the kind of, I was just at the right age for that opportunity to arise, and then me to get that opportunity to go there. Now with the CPL, with the MLS clubs, youth clubs continuing to grow and develop, the pathways, there's never only one.
No.
But now we have plenty, and now we scale it back to those guys who, someone like Craig Forrest, who doing what he did then to go overseas and make an amazing career out there as a Canadian.
Oh,
that must have been tough.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing lots of guys do that because those pathways exist.
Yeah.
And we're getting in. Who knows? Maybe there'll be more and more and more. And like I said, I think based on the trajectory we've seen lately, there'll be plenty.
So Marco, Cavalry open up on the road in Hamilton this Saturday, but you are home opener at Atco Field is April 30th. The Valor will be here. There's that, which we want everybody to come watch you. Anything, in terms of, shout outs for any, cancer or anything or information that we want to share?
Well, I've been fortunate enough to be connected with an organization.
I guess not a shout out for cancer. That's probably wrong, but you know what I mean.
Well, we totally know what you meant.
Yeah. Okay.
I've been very lucky to work with an organization called One Ball.
Okay.
Great name.
Yeah.
Testicular
says
cancer
it all.
Survivors. Yeah. Yep. Says it all. One Ball, and actually April is Testicular Cancer Awareness Month.
Okay.
I know we're already halfway through it, but a great opportunity to find out some more resources. They are a grassroots organization that do incredible work. I got referred after my treatment, and Thankfully, I'm in a position where, that was the extent of my treatment after my surgery up until now, which I'm very grateful for. But those guys are supporting men who are going through it. And it's not easy, and it's not cheap. When you talk about fertility and wanting to have children and what that looks like, and sperm banks and the cost of that, and having to make those decisions as potentially a teenager in this, in a minute, really. They're an organization that's starting right there and just helping guys with that. So One Ball is a place to maybe go look and find out and see what they're doing, because they are doing incredible work. And the other organization I'd shout out is the Prostate Cancer Center here. The couple times I've spoken, I've been able to be at events that they're doing incredible work. It's certainly on a different scale, but and focusing on prostate cancer, which is not the same, but it's a men's cancer. And men's health is what they're focusing on. And the PCC and the people there are doing an amazing
top notch,
amazing work. And I'm just grateful to help out in some small way with those two.
And Villains Football Club
and Calgary Villains Football Club. Yeah, we like I said, it's certainly still a bit under the wraps, but we
coming
are
soon.
We are hoping to be getting all the ducks in a row and pushing things forward. And we'll need the community support, because this is going to be a community project that's going to help us create more places and spaces for kids to play. And we need more and more of those. So,
and that brings us to Kids Sport, which you're an ambassador, right?
Yep, exactly. It's a community.
I was going to say, other than that, nothing going on. Always good to see you. Love you, brother. You are the best. I appreciate you coming in and talking to us. I've been waiting to do this for a while. It's such an important one. I hope this podcast gets shared around, because guys need to hear it. We need to have this conversation, and you're leading it. So thank you, sir.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Marco Carducci from your Cavalry FC. They open up on the road on Sunday.